and gentlemen, a very good evening to you. May we please remind you to turn off your mobile phones and pagers, or Julia will come down and embarrass you personally. So now, will you please welcome your host for this evening, Miss Julia Zemiro.
Opera House for an evening I certainly have been waiting for quite a few weeks, to talk about all things the Killing and Borgen. Now, last night the Crown Prince couple of Denmark celebrated their awards night here in Sydney. They usually do it in Denmark every year, and it's a special present they were given, a wedding present, to celebrate Danish culture and amazing new people doing stuff. This year they decided, as part of their tour of Australia, to do it here. It was fantastic to be able to present it from here. There's 2 Rising Star Awards, and there's a social award for groups that are doing incredible things in the community in Denmark, and then there's the Culture Award. The Culture Award that has an impact internationally. And lucky for us, it happened to be the creators and cast of The Killing and Borgen, and that's why we've been able to secure them for the very following night, after a big night, to be here this evening. So they're trapped, and we've got them just for a little bit longer. So it's great. So, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Danish contingency. To them. We have the creator and writer of Borgen, Prise. Producer of all 3 series of The Killing and head of drama at DR, Piv Bernt. And of course, the women we have all fallen in love with and wish we were. Lead actress Sidse Babett Knudsen from and Sofie Gråbøl from The Killing. Programs have won international Emmys and BAFTAs, and DR, the Danish National Broadcaster, is behind both programs. And I guess it would be fair to say that 10 years ago, people weren't predicting that the next wave of brilliant global drama would necessarily be coming from Denmark. So, Piv, what happened? Can it be traced to one person or one policy or one idea?
One policy, I think, because the policy was to try to take the American version of the way of working, the way they worked, and transform it into a Scandinavian way of working. And I think that we work from a thing called One Vision, which is one person has a certain story they have to tell, and then they sort of implement that in the rest of the crew and the actors and the directors. And then it's timing as well, I think. Timing with the right people at the right time. A lot of collaboration with the Danish National Film School, which has been a big thing. And, I think a consciousness of how we're working and for the writers and for the actresses and for the directors. And
was it that concept of a writer's room?
Yes.
In that you wanted to follow that American model and say we'll have lots of different people collaborating.
Yeah. But still we do it in a Scandinavian way.
And what's the Scandinavian way?
That's how we do it. Because I think we work in a more sort of a democratic way than the Americans. But still, I think, and we try to involve all the people who are working at sort of the creative A team. They work together on the show, which is the production designer, the DOP, the directors, of course, and the lead actors. They have a say in it. But of course, it's one vision. It's from the writer.
Was that your experience, Adam?
Yes, definitely. I think what is really important is artistic freedom. That fabled thing that we're actually getting when we work with DR, and it is something spectacular. I've also worked with commercial channels, and it works differently there. So it is something unique that they actually let you be.
There's not a lot of executives running around in the writers' room.
So you're able to I mean, the person who actually initiates the idea and goes to DR and pitches the first idea, and eventually, if everything goes right, becomes the showrunner, is able to take the idea the whole way. And that is of vital importance, I mean. And you don't have this system of executives constantly deluding the idea, constantly going, no, I think, and then one boss is fired and you get another one and two more executives above him or her, and then, I mean, too many chefs.
You just have actors deluding.
Yeah. But we can live with that.
What's that name?
That's what we do to actors. We too much.
So, Sidse, did you know this show was being written for you, Borgen? Did you know it was going to be your role, or did you have to audition for it?
I had to audition for it, and to me it was also crucial because I had been avoiding TV my whole life.
Why is that?
Well, because it seemed so fragmented. It seemed like there was, that a lot of people involved, a lot of strange timings, a bit. Just producing a lot of shit. and as an actress, I'm dependent on that one heartbeat to trace the story back to a person who is passionate about the story, and so that was my way into it.
Yeah. Sofie, what about you? Did they know that they wanted you for this main part of The Killing?
Yes.
Lucky. Now, of course, Søren's Sidstrup, am I saying that correctly? Couldn't be here. He actually didn't even come for the award, so it's not just for tonight. He actually had to stay in Denmark and work. But I think Piv is all over it. She's got all the answers for The Killing for you. But you had worked with Søren before.
Yeah, we did actually Piv and Søren and I did a series before called Nikolai and Julie. And actually after that, I was at a 20 episode? 22. It was very, very tough to do. And when I was finished with that, I said I'd never ever do television again. So when they called me about this crime thriller story, The Killing, I was... So probably they knew I was going to play it, but I didn't.
Sometimes that happens in life. Sometimes that happens. Now, both series, of course, are defined by powerfully written female leads, women with good sides and bad sides. The major drama series with women leads is sadly still the exception rather than the rule. Again, why Denmark? Did that meet with any resistance, the idea of a woman in charge?
No.
Out there, you've just got to convince 7, 9, 10 SBS ABC
I would say that's one of the things why these stories travel so much, because I think they are role models for a lot of countries, that we have defined women in a different way. Because it's independent women who go their own way and do the things they have to do no matter what. And to a far exchange, of course, there are others going all the way.
I just watched a little of Australian television. It's bad, isn't it? Well, I watched commercials. There was a commercial for said at the end of it, the choice of most Australian housewives. You could never have a commercial like that in Denmark.
No, that's why is that? That's
Because I mean, they would say, you're sorry.
in Denmark, you would say households.
Yeah,
You wouldn't say
definitely.
housewives. Yes.
And they would show a man that would pour it.
I have to say we would have to actually almost end that conversation because in that, you clearly think differently and see things differently over there, and whatever we can do to start kind of joining the 21st century and being it's not even, we shouldn't even be laughing at it. It's a whole other set of circumstances, and we should be supportive, and we shouldn't be making a big deal of it because it's not a big deal there. I've been there twice, and it's not a big deal. It's just how life is, and it's very frustrating and seductive to be in Scandinavia, in Scandinavian countries, because it's just a given-ish, pretty much.
Yes.
That's
Yeah,
right.
I mean,
Actually, I've experienced a lot with Sarlund. The thing is, when we created her, we very early on we had some meetings about what we would like to do. I was very privileged to be invited in very early in the process, so there weren't a script. And we early on decided that the story of the woman in a man's world we didn't really want to tell. So we decided, well, it's more, for us an investigation into an interesting human being, more than the story of an interesting woman in a man's world. But when it aired, I found that I was so much asked by journalists and people about as if it was a statement. And how do you feel about playing this sort of woman character? And I got to a point where I thought, well, none of my male colleagues are ever asked that question. How do you feel about playing that male character? Yes, because she's a woman because I'm a woman. So we're almost there, but it's not like we're...
But similarly with Borgen, we know the story now of life imitating art in a way, where the show began and then all of a sudden a female Prime Minister was voted in. What were the reactions from people in the street to your work?
Well, very similar to what you're saying, Sophie, and it was also very constant between us in the beginning that it was a great idea to have the first female Prime Minister. Great idea, put that on track, pioneer, it's always interesting. But after that, we don't want to see a woman politician going into a room full of male politicians and being a woman in that room. I mean, that would be so boring. So there are very few episodes that are really around the gender issues. Most of the time, and what was interesting for me was to play a human being, an interesting, idealistic politician that comes from outside and is put in the centre of the whole thing.
Shane, can we look at clip number 6 to see a little bit of an example of that? In that it's not about being a woman, it's about taking charge.
Sig så her for helvede. Alt det her, det kan blive dit. Men magten er sgu ikke en sød lille vovse, der bare hopper op i skødet og bliver liggende. Den skal tages og fastholdes. Ellers så forsvinder den sgu bare. Det eneste relevante spørgsmål er, hvem kan tælle til 90? Hvem kan tælle til 90, Birgitte?
Det kan jeg.
Yeah.
Så er der lige en ting. Det er slut med at have venner på borgen. Du skal kunne sige nej til alle, så du kan fyre alle uden at ryste på hånden.
Hvad med dig, Ben? Må jeg ikke beholde dig som ven?
Jeg hører jo fortiden til.
people and one who's not quite there yet, and you sort of, and we've all seen it, haven't we? Yes, we know what's going to happen in the end, and another lovely shot of Copenhagen, so we know where we are. Very good, very good. But yeah, that's not necessarily about being a woman. That's about saying, look, you've got this opportunity. If you don't grab it, it's not yours. Yeah, great. Both roles were written by men, and there's nothing wrong with that. But how did that work? When did Sofie and when did Sidse, when did you kind of have to stand your ground and say, well, no, I'm going to argue this point about this character?
All the... No, but I mean that in a very, very loving and positive way. Like Piv said, the Scandinavian way, you said it nicely, it's democratic, but democracy is arguing. And we did that a lot.
Yes, we did.
But like I said, I worked with Søren, our writer, on a series before, where we argued like crazy. And I figured when he called me back, that's what he wanted.
That's true. Resistance. That's what it was.
But no, it was really a fruitful, and I felt constantly invited to argue, in the sense that I don't know actually how you work, but we worked in the sense that
Dictatorship.
Sidse, I don't believe that for a minute. You didn't argue sometimes for things that you wanted?
Well, we were much more civilized. I mean, it was a very conscious show about democracy, so of course, very grown up in the room. No, but I mean, I was invited. I absolutely felt invited, and it was also, I mean, it's. I think there was a lot of research going on, and it was a creative process, and we haven't worked before, so it was also. I'm talking for Adam now because he's good at writing English. But of course he had written this character that he cared a lot about, and then I tried to do it, and then some things worked for me and some things didn't, and then we saw that, and then we discussed things, and sometimes I get a present, and sometimes I'd receive it, and sometimes I wouldn't. But it was more on that level, I think. And then, but you sort of, cutting corners.
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah, but I think we also had great discussions or kind of exchanges of opinions that were also kind of female-male sometimes.
Absolutely.
It was really, really good. I mean, the best example of that would possibly be the relationship between Birgitte and her husband in the first season, where we deliberately wanted her husband to be very, very good, a loving husband who puts the soap in the machine. But how long is he going to put that soap in the machine?
I have a male friend who's a writer, and he wanted me to ask this question, so it's not me saying it's him. He said he was disappointed, Adam, that the Philip didn't hang in there longer.
That's exactly the argument. But I mean, we also had a lot of male viewers who said, "My God, he's just too good. I mean, how long is it? When does he start to bug around?"
But exactly, can I just say that because collaboration, and an example of that was, I really thought that he left too quickly, and he should have stood up. I mean, they made an agreement. Of course, I wanted to be Prime Minister, and of course that has a price. And I kept saying so to him. I think I need a call back. So you let me have that in the second spurt.
But that is really.
Yeah. What were you going to say?
Yeah, but I was going to say in that discussion about Philip and Birgitte, I think one of the scenes between them is an example of what you started out with about the female characters and the way women behave in Scandinavia. Because the deal they make is not usual, but it's not unusual in that
5
way.
years for me, 5 years for
No,
you.
not even that deal. And a more interesting deal, which is, if you have a lover, Birgitte says to Philip, if you have a lover, do that, but do it discreetly, and then stand up for me and be my husband on the outside, in the public life. But I can live with that, because I can't give you what you want, because I'm too busy. And that is very interesting, because that's very Scandinavian.
That particular scene was also, I mean, for us, the great tragedy, because we see these people and how profound their love was for each other, and all of a sudden it becomes ridicule. I mean, it's a mockery of love, and then you need to.
And it's a historical thing for men to do.
Yeah.
Having a mistress somewhere and then have a wife and kids and all that home.
Because, I mean, men are, in effect, I mean, just like you said, I mean, with Borgen, in the first two seasons, we were 3 men. So it's in the writers' room. So it's basically a feminist project written by 3 men. And I mean, men are weak in many ways, especially when it comes to stamina in relationships. And we need to show that. We need to show that.
But ironically, I think for me, one of the things about the Danish shows, and The Killing particularly when it started, was the darkness, the held back feeling, the no over-emoting, which makes you not know, you have to guess what's going on. And yet, the grieving parents in that first series of The Killing, I mean, they're also a relationship that I would love to be in too, because by the end, they really hang in there till the end. That darkness of The Killing is something that we've all enjoyed. So let's have a look at a bit of that darkness, but in a fun way. Can we have clip 1, please, Shane, from The Killing?
Okay, jeg hedder Ulrik. Jeg har været års tid i afdelingen. Jeg er lidt beskidt, og jeg har det fint med det. Jeg har 2 dejlige unger. Lige nu er det lidt svært for dem, men med tiden så tror jeg, at jeg bliver glad. Jeg kan godt lide fodbold. Og opera, hvis det ikke skriger for mig.
Du skal til venstre næste gang. Jan Poulsen har været udsendt flere gange. Han er blevet dekoreret.
Hvad med dig?
Nej, jeg er ikke blevet dekoreret. Men der er ikke så meget at fortælle. Du har selv været gæsser, og resten har jeg sikkert hørt.
Jeg lytter ikke til slaget. Hvis der er ting, der er sket...
Hvis jeg skal være helt ærlig, så er jeg helt fri for at snakke om det.
The sort of caricature we expect of a female cop who is good, because men cops can be bad and unredeemed, and you are so not redeemed by the end. We can talk about Killing 1, 2 and 3, we've all seen it. Too bad if you haven't. And she's never quite redeemed.
No, that's actually, that was the, what do you call, the credo or the...
the
for
motto.
us. Yeah. And actually, well, maybe in a sense you could say that is a Nordic thing. I mean, that if you go back to Strindberg and Bergman or all of them, Ibsen, and we have a tradition of telling the story of the unredeemed. But I don't know, Shakespeare probably did that. It's in drama. If you redeem a character, then it's over. There's no drama. But yes, it was actually one of my personal. I have to correct something,
please,
even though he's not here. John, and I could say whatever. It is. I mean, I was invited in as all the actors actually to join the come with ideas to the script. But it is, and we argued. But I say that in a fun way because at the end it is Søren's story all the way through. So the way the process worked, he would write a script, and when it was almost finished, he would invite all the actors in,
all the lead actors,
and the work was all the actors and he would pick and choose and take the good ideas and leave the bad. And actually it was the same thing when we started out the project. I was invited in and he said, well, I have this idea. As far as I recall, the idea was small town, one murder, 20 episodes, whatever, and a female investigator. What do you think? And I said, well, boring. One murder, 20, boring, too slow. And then we discussed what kind of character would you play. And I remember saying that I would really like to play someone who wasn't able to communicate at all. Also maybe because I normally was casting very, very emotional roles, I've cried a lot. Had huge orgasms and I just long to hold things back. Tantra way of acting.
I mean, really, Sarah Moon, if you count how many words she has, really, she doesn't have much dialogue as you'd expect for such a powerful force in a show.
No, and the dialogue she has, she takes on the phone.
Never say goodbye. Someone clever once said, I don't know who it was, that drama is destiny. Do you think Soren had this idea of 3 arcs, 3 series, bang, it would finish?
Yes, I know. Yes.
Yeah.
When we started the developing of the story in 2004, I think, we discussed when people meet destinies, your destinies cross by accident, by a certain accident. People sort of get involved in it, even though they not really have anything to do with it, and suddenly their destiny changes because of that. And we talked about a trilogy, really, but we didn't dare to mention it to anyone because, if the first season completely failed, it wouldn't make sense to make a trilogy. so that's why we discussed it, and we discussed actually on the plane over here.
I thought it was only 1 series.
Yeah.
I thought it was finished.
Yeah. And then we started again, and Søren and I really
Why?
wanted
Because
to
it
go.
was popular enough in Denmark, or by then had the success in the UK made you think,
No, it wasn't even in the UK.
It wasn't at that
No.
time.
We broadcasted the first season in 2007 in Denmark, and it came to the UK, I think, in 2009.
Right.
While we were broadcasting the second season in Denmark.
So what happens to her, do you think, Sophie? Like, that last episode, and then she goes on the plane, and she's everything, oh no, and then you go, where's she going to go? Where does she go, do you think, in your own mind?
Well, I've been asked that a lot. I never thought of that myself. But we just, actually, that ending, there was a lot of discussion. and crisis.
Even on the shot, the day we shot it. There was a lot of discussion.
Everything was, because it was, how do you end it? How do you, I think actually we had painted this character so much up in a dark corner, in every way. At the ending, she could hardly speak anymore. She could hardly communicate with anyone. It was so dark and this big knot. And actually, when we started the 3rd season, Søren, our writer, told me he planned to kill her. That was the intention.
That was the intention.
And I thought that was a good decision.
We thought it was too definite for the character, it was too real for the character.
But the thing is, people got really, really angry.
With the ending that you
yes,
had.
and with me personally, I actually about the ending, and I understand that because there was absolutely no. Actually, Søren said the reason why he decided not to kill her is he said it's too easy for her. I mean, when you die, you're like liberated. You can just.
So she
wanted her to suffer, and how could he make her suffer or pay the highest price as a almost mythological hero kind of thing that you have to make the ultimate sacrifice to solve a case, which was actually killing a man in her case, and then she had to lose everything. She finally was at a stage where she could have loved, great love.
Yeah.
She could, and she could have had, her family, her son. She could have a grandchild. Everything was within reach. And then just before getting it, she lost everything. And I thought actually, took me some turns, but I think he was right.
Adam, what about you? You do have 3 series of Borgen. I bought the 2nd series legally, just so you know. I may have illegally found the 3rd one. Anyway, we won't talk about series 2 and 3 because series 2 of Borgen is starting on SBS in November, so that'll be something very exciting. Very exciting. But with you, did you see where you thought it might go in terms of an arc and story?
Yes, definitely. But only in 2 series, only in 20 episodes.
Oh.
Yeah. So the 3rd one is a thing in itself.
It's
a strange being, yes.
Yeah.
But we were so fortunate also working within this system that if we don't fuck up really bad, then we are actually given the opportunity of writing 20 episodes.
Yeah.
And we know that when developing the first one.
We commissioned that from the start, yes.
Which is really beautiful, and story-wise, you were really able to do the big arch.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew the end scene of episode 20 when we were storylining episode 1.
Yeah.
But
it's all like that, because I would say that one of the first scenes that was actually sort of spoken about when we started creating The Killing was the final scene in the woods with the girl's father and the perpetrator. That was the first scene. We didn't know that it was in the woods. We didn't know that it was Val, this guy, but we knew it was somebody close to the family, and that they would go on a ride, and the father would eventually kill him. That was the only thing we had, really. That was the very first scene we had. We didn't know how to start it, and how we were going to get there. But we knew we were going to get there eventually somehow. Yeah.
And then the sort of process has to just start along the way.
Yeah.
You didn't know, Sofie, who the killer was. Personally, I would find that really annoying as an actress to go, well, I mean, really.
I was offended.
You were offended?
I thought it was disrespectful. And I think the reason why I thought it was so disrespectful was because our writer, or was it you?
I don't know.
At some point, then were my parents, mom or dad, said that it's good for you actors not to know, because then you will act better. You are an investigator, and you can truly investigate. And that pissed me off. Because it's the very finest thing of acting is, what do you call it, when you choose which cards to play when. I mean, that's the whole fun of it. And I felt that I couldn't, because I didn't really. But then, I must say, that after a while, I was actually happy that I didn't, because I was doing my own investigation, and I was so stuck, I wanted to crack it. No, and also I think that when you work on such a long project, because normally actors work for 4 months doing theatre, or 2 months doing a film, and when we do a TV series for 1.5 years, it's a very, very long marriage. And to keep that marriage interesting and not be, I've heard you say that so many times before, and I'm going to say that. But for me, every time we got a script, I truly didn't know where the story was going, and that kept me on my toes.
I have to say that, we do make good drama in Australia as well. I mean, the Danes are, but, we're not that bad.
I've seen The Slab. That is.
Yep. And East West 101, great show. SBS, that's all right. But great. I wasn't in it, but obviously. But one thing, when I started watching a lot of Danish stuff, it started to become like a fun game, didn't it? To start going, oh yes, that actor. Yes, his name is so Malik. He's playing Pig. So, Shane, let's look at the man that was the lover and the husband of so many. Let's look at clip 5, where he gives his beautiful wife some advice.
Altså, han tager sådan 5 minutter, ikke?
Ja, men det må fandme bare vente, altså. Sådan her. Jeg tror, den ned, så. Det tager man da ikke, vel? Ja.
Skal du have sandheden, eller den kærlighed?
Sandheden?
Din røv er for stor. 5 kilo mellem dig og det sjovt sæt der.
Okay, den kærlighed.
Renseriet har krøbet det.
Nå. Okay. Han kan jo bare tage det gamle.
I love how Birgitte Nyborg's always, why there's so many cakes here all the time at meetings, get rid of the cakes. But it's true, it's like, I actually wanted to get a slide with all the most of the characters. I mean, they're in everything, the swapping, the back and forth. I mean, that's just how it is. And often in Australian films and TV that happens, you think, oh, him again, good, yes, and you, obviously. and oh yes, you're the only Greek actor that could ever play that part. As usual. Is that like a fun round robin? Do you kind of, you know the characters you'll be going for, you'll he'd be good for that one, or?
Yeah, well, obviously there are certain actors that just have the moment, and we discuss it a lot. And also, I mean, with the drama bosses, we discuss, can we have him in this role?
Right.
Are these two series shown back to back? Would it be too much? Like he just killed her and now he's married? Would it be pushing it? No. Hey, he's a great guy.
But that's super. The thing is that Michael, this wonderful actor that you just was Sarah's partner in the second series, he actually was the lead in a series before called Summer.
Yeah.
And when we were trying to get a partner for Sofie for the second season, I think we had auditioned, I think 25 actors or so. Oh. And when Michael came in, it was just like, there he is. Yeah. That's it.
And
then we said, he's just been in this house.
Same thing about that.
Yeah. And then when the same thing happened in Borgen. and the producer of Borgen, she called me and said, we were still shooting the second season, and she said, is there any chance that you kill Michael? And I said, yeah, we do, I think we do. Oh, good, thank you very much.
He's completely dead, or just...
Yes. Show up if you do a third season, you won't show up again? No.
Well, honestly, it's like, it could be a wonderful drinking game, couldn't it? Watching all these different shows and go, oh, there's that one, please, in that. There was a fantastic Danish series, crime series called Prise. That's sort of wrong, but anyway. Unit 1, and there's 4 or 5 seasons. Oh, it's so great, get it. Why didn't that fire up like The Killing has? Why was it not that one, or The Protectors, or Evil, or The Evil, or Unappeal, or...
Well, I can say that Unit 1, I think it never traveled because the production is very sort of simple made. Because the thing about The Killing and Borgen, it has a very, very wonderful production value. It's very, very nice shots, the lighting, even though there's not much light in The Killing. And the scripts are a little more subtle, I think. The plot, the storylines are a little more subtle. Because I think the acting in Unit 1 is excellent. Such good teams working together there. But they're in this bus all the time, and in small Danish villages, more or less. And it's not that exciting. It's not so exotic as we in The Killing. We give Copenhagen a part in the series in a way, and the same thing with Borgen. It has a production value which is much more excellent.
And I also think story-wise, The Killing is a unique structure. Whereas Unit 1 is kind of a traditional cop show, and they just like we talked about the other night, they win every time. Every single episode, they clear the mess up and they move on to the next case. Whereas the plot thickens, and she only gets deeper and deeper into shit. There's no end to it.
That was actually
the
a very conscious choice from Søren's side, because he said when he started The Killing, he said, I'm not going to do this ordinary cop show as all the other ones. One episode, one killing, one episode, and then move on. I'm going to do it more, and as Sofie said, everybody, apart from me, really, said, it's never going to happen. You're never going to have the audience waiting 20 episodes for a killer. That's ridiculous. Nobody's going to watch this. And he said, no, okay, but let's try. Let's give it a try. And then, I must say, the former bosses at DR were all the executives were very brave and courageous and said, yes, try it. Let's see what's happening. And the creative freedom, as you said, everybody looked at it. After saw 2 or 3 episodes, they said, wow, this was good. Keep on going. So
but can't we still admit also or say that we were taken totally aback by the success?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, nobody expected.
No.
Because it was shown on the BBC, and I was told that it was only the 3rd time in the history of the BBC that they had actually showing a TV series with subtitles. So they didn't really expect that people weren't used to reading it. They thought, well, it's not going to work. We're going to put it on a late time, I don't know, Tuesday or Thursday night. And then it suddenly just grew. So we can sit and try to, and we have, of course, tried to understand what happened and why did that happen. And one thing is, I think the quality is high. I mean, it's so well written and well made. But it's also, a timing thing.
It's interesting too. It's interesting too because a lot of people who are interested in making good telly or good craft or whatever, you go to these workshops and you're told how you should do it, and there's all these different rules, and at the end you come out more confused, I should imagine. But I think these two shows, I mean, the political system of Denmark, I mean, we don't know anything about it, you can't necessarily say. I think the more specific you are about the story that you're telling, the more international it is, because you're not trying to be like everyone else. You're saying, well, we're trying to just do this thing where we're looking at this bit, and we all somehow found a way in. Because really, what a challenge, Adam, to make that world. Well, you weren't even thinking of it internationally. You were just doing it.
No. We were told this will never travel. I mean, the Norwegians will buy it out of. Brotherly love. Neighborly love. So I mean, we were completely confused.
But that was the door was open for us. Yeah. I mean, nobody would have discovered it, I think.
But that's not really true.
Maybe not.
I take the compliment.
But I think, can I just go back to when you said, talk about the drinking game and having your own, I mean, I think it being so exotic as well. And I think it is the viewers who have made it popular. It was there on the plate on a small TV channel in England. And then when people found it, that joy of discovering this treasure and I can deal with this, it's weird language, but and I'll tell my friends about it. I'll be the one who says, you should see this thing, you won't forget me saying, when you discover that thing, it's a different pleasure. I think if it was thrown in your face like most American and really with lots of publicity and it's this and that and we know how to react to it before we've seen it, but the exotism.
I agree. Adam, I'm assuming West Wing was obviously a bit of an influence in your.
A lot of political drama. I mean, we saw about everything. Of course, every single episode of the West Wing, but also Yes Minister, Yes Prime Minister. It's actually a very, very well written show, and it really deals with politics in a very subtle way. It's just funny, but it's never. It's nonetheless more serious than West Wing, and it's also funny because in the West Wing in Denmark is considered a very, very, very special show about nitty-gritty details of politics, and sometimes, there are several episodes of The West Wing written like a comedy or like a romantic comedy. Some of them. So I think it's been kind of it was a huge inspiration to us, but we wanted to do something different.
But I mean, West Wing is, a middle-aged man, brilliant writer, but his sort of idealistic view, and that's what's so appealing about it, about what could be. Yeah. And in fact, I feel Borgen's a bit like that in the way Birgitte tries to figure out, well, what can we discover as you discover?
Yeah, but also, the West Wing is very much a show about a football team, all playing for the president. Whereas Borgen, we wanted to do a character universe with actually the columns of Danish democracy represented in the three major characters. So one, the politician, one, the political advisor, the spin doctor, and one, the journalist. And these three people are constantly trying to control each other. And that makes the structure of the show different.
Great. Both shows showcase Copenhagen. Has there been more tourism? That's an incredible thing for a television show to actually... So does that mean then the government goes, oh, we'll give you a bit more money, and then it becomes this nice round robin? Or...
No.
You've done so much work.
Yeah, but we should have some money from the Danish Tourist Board, really.
Yeah.
Because they have been, go in the footsteps of Sarah Lund, go to see the Borgen, where the Borgen people are, and it's been quite a lot, really. Yeah, and they actually asked a lot of us, to do guided tours. No, not really. We're sort of
Have you
writers.
been on the bus?
Yes, but so we have different jobs. We're not
have something to fall back on.
That's right. That's right. It's good for a rainy day. Yeah.
Look, well, speaking of something to fall back on, what's next for everyone? What are you doing? I mean, that's the thing. There's this incredible success, and there's nothing like great success to completely paralyse you with fear about what you're going to do next in terms of a creator or in terms of performer, thinking, well, what will I do next in terms of character? I mean, you were quite successful there, Sofie, in saying you always play characters who are emotional, and then you get to play one that is completely different and held back. But when you watch Unit 1 and you see a young Mads Mikkelsen there, way before his sort of trip to Hollywood and all of that, that's one direction, obviously, but has it opened doors, and do you feel like you want to, what has it taken you to, I guess?
Well, there's been a lot of very nice offers, and right now I'm trying to write a show that's possibly for the BBC. We don't know yet, they haven't said yes to it. But I'm working together with the original novelist behind House of Cards. So they thought of a combination of dark-haired man.
She can do that.
Yeah, but we'll see about that. And I'm also trying to develop a new show for DR. So, yeah.
Fantastic.
You? I'm developing a show there.
Great.
No, and yes, we're having a lot of new series starting up now. We have a new starting up in January called The Legacy, which is 4 siblings dealing with the legacy from their mother, who was one of the very famous artists from the 60s and 70s, and how they deal with their life now. So
everyone know that Piv is the head of drama now, and not
yes,
just
said that.
I said that beginning. Oh, yes,
just drama.
Yeah, that's good.
Sorry, yeah, no, totally.
She has a lot of projects.
But this is, I will only talk about this. But this is coming up now in January. We're expecting very much from it.
Yeah, great. What would you like to do next, Sofie? What's something you'd like to do? Is it theatre? Do you want to get back to theatre?
Well, I have to actually. It just finished here, but I finished The Killing a bit ago.
Oh, sure.
So I have done theatre and film after that.
Yeah, since then.
There wasn't life after.
Well, that's the thing. It's a burden in a way, isn't it? To have you, as an actor, you want to be recognised so much and do great work. You'd rather do great work. Then it comes. Then it becomes a kind of burden, good and bad. And then people want to keep you as that person, and then you say, well, I've got to move on now.
Yes and no. I know what you mean, that you can feel trapped in a certain... But no, I don't think... I think people are also relieved that I'm moving on.
Is it?
Yeah, every time I smile at someone, they say, oh, I'm so relieved to be
I did a lot of... Well, it was pleasurable research, the happiest homework I've ever had to do in my bloody life. But I did go back to series 1 of The Killing, and Shane, can we get a clip too? It was just really good to see Sarah happy.
Jeg er ikke i tvivl om, at Stockholm er en stor glæde af dig.
Yes.
lot of remakes, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But Broadchurch, this new show that they made in England, and it was on television here very recently. Great, 10-part, I think, crime, and really, you would have to look at that and say that was shot in the style of the Danes. I mean, in an homage way, in a wonderful way.
I actually saw 5 episodes on the plane on the way to here, and I agree totally.
In a beautiful way, the stillness, the taking the time, not too much talking, big plan, like a film, and that is really one of the loveliest compliments that can be paid to what you've done, because I think we all got sucked into it a little bit more because it was in that style. It was beautiful. Before we get to questions from the floor, and it would be great if you could ask questions you haven't heard answers to already. And we've got some microphones set up, and have a bit of a think if there's something you want to ask that you haven't heard. But of course, the Americans remade The Killing, a version of The Killing. What was that like? Was that very strange to watch for all of you?
Actually, when I heard of it, and people around me were like, they are making, they were so, and I was like, well, fine. I mean, we were busy doing our own, shooting the
second season.
And so I didn't have any, I didn't feel anything about it. And then I was contacted by their producer, and she said that she was such a fan of the original The Killing show, and of my Sarah Lund, there's a called Sarah Linden, and she would just so much like me to come over to Canada where they shot it to play a small cameo role in their show. And I thought, well, why not? It was like it's a lovely thing with the audience of The Killing, I think, is that they're all nerds. How dare you? Yes, they know all the details and they've seen it, and it's terrible when you do a crime whodunit story, because Søren actually made some, because he wrote as we went along, and at the end he had to make all the plot fit, and some of it didn't. And people were like, well, I saw that little something, whatever, it didn't add up. Anyway, she said it would be a nice, hello to all the nerds in America who've seen the Danish version and the American, if you're there together, because they obviously didn't know me, because they didn't see the Danish version. So I flew over to Canada, and I met everyone, and then suddenly I'm in the scene. I only had one scene, playing a lawyer or something, and I was standing in high heels and a little skirt and a briefcase and in a parking lot, classical thriller location, and they would yell action, and Sarah Linden walks up to me in a jumper and a ponytail, and I have to give her some information so she can, move up, and I'm nothing. I'm just, for her to be distant, and then walk on, and I'm left in the parking lot, and I felt like I acted very civilized, but in the back of my mind there was a 4-year-old. Give me my jumper! Well, there's also the bridge that has been on here recently, and the bridge was so great also, because you got a double deliciousness of Swedes and Danes. I mean, and then we learned more culturally, because this is the thing, it's learning culturally what different people do and what they think. And so all of a sudden you open up this whole world of, why don't they get on, or how do they perceive each other, or it's great, it's so great. That's been remade on the Mexican border in the States. And in England, with the tunnel and all that. That'll be funny with the French and the English.
Actually, the first episode is quite interesting. Yeah.
Et de toute façon, avec nous, hein, on va regarder ça en français.
Avec grand plaisir.
Avec grand plaisir. Voilà. Of course, in Borgen, how great is it when this one goes into the French? And then the political spec as well, which is a whole language in itself, all that political jargon. So remakes, I think we probably need to do an Australian Borgen just redeem ourselves for our hideous behaviour in the last 6 months. That might have been a nice idea. to Steve or Shane, who's in charge of the lights. Someone on work experience, obviously. Alright, that's enough. I'll say much. Now, so we've got these very handy microphones here. There's one here, one up there. No one has to travel to. Yeah, come on down. Start making your way down to the microphone. And like I said, possibly a question you haven't heard an answer to, or all grown with love. But yes, you're first up, that lovely lady up there. Here we go.
I'm going to find out about your jumpers, who makes them, and when can we get them?
Actually, it's like a guided tour. I don't know where you get them. I should. But they are from the Faroe Islands. It's a small company called Gudrun and Gudrun, who's made a fortune. They just actually couldn't keep up at all. And the old lady's knitting. Yeah, they're beautiful.
They're $500, so what? You can knit your own, but apparently the selling of all those jumpers kept Denmark out of the global financial crisis.
Yes, down here, hello.
Hello. I was going to ask a question about the remake,
Please.
but since then, I just wanted to say, since I've been watching SBS Unit 1, there, I can't, watching BBC and all the other shows, I can't compare to the Danish shows because I just love them. Nothing's better than the Danish shows. So my next question is to Sofie, what was it like kissing Borch in that season 3?
Silent.
Thanks for discussing details.
It was very, very hot in the car. Extremely warm car.
Hot watching.
He is, what can I tell you? Sidse has played with him a lot. All the time. He's actually, honestly, he's an amazing actor. And in my opinion, he's the best actor of our generation in Denmark. He can be so funny you wouldn't believe it, and be the most tragic, painful, and he's a good kisser.
You said, apparently in the interview you said that you wouldn't jump in, if he played the part, you wouldn't jump into the river or something. He said yes to the part.
What? Yeah. I never jumped into the harbor, but I texted him, if you say yes, I'll jump into the harbor. Yeah, because he is. But actually, it was when you cast when you've done so many, like you said, it's a small country, so there are not that many really good actors around, and when you've done 2 seasons and you need a new partner who should be everything. There are not that many, and I actually thought that he would say no, so I was just thrilled when he did it.
And we called him before for one of the other seasons to get him in, and he couldn't make it. So, but it's a risky business to be the partner of Sarah Long. The other ones get killed.
No season 4, definitely no season 4.
But if he's in lots of films, you can say those.
We never say never.
Sidse Babett Knudsen's had the great good fortune of kissing Mads Mikkelsen, so I'd be pretty happy. In After the Wedding, get that. That's a very good film. Thank you. Yes, up there.
Hi. Given the fact that Copenhagen will be hosting the Eurovision Song Contest next year, will DR be celebrating the fact by featuring the success of the series and perhaps having Sidse and Sofie as joint presenters?
I must say it's a great suggestion you come back, and I will bring it back home. I'm leaving tomorrow, and I will go straight to my boss's place.
A problem with the title Borgen. You have no idea, being a Dane living in Australia, how many times I've had to explain that Danish Parliament House is called Christiansborg. Nobody knows it here. Could we find another title? and finally, thank you very much for making SBS television so well known in Australia.
Yeah, I'd just like to ask what you think the main issue in Danish politics is at the moment today. Is it immigration? What's the big talking point in Denmark politics?
Well,
Because you touched on it a couple of times in Borgen itself.
The general survival of the government is is definitely, they're having a really tough time. And the funny thing is, or life imitating art, is that the coalition government is exactly the same colours as Birgitte Nyborg's government in our fictional Danish politics. And they're having really a bad time, definitely. But we've thanked them a few times because after they've come into power, there've been not a single word of criticism over us being unrealistic.
Is that right?
It's actually true.
Yeah. Well, yes, it's not a pretty thing. Hello, yes.
Sophie, your hair looks great. But culturally, it's very interesting from the point of view that the programs all look at many different layers within the story. And what is it about Danish culture that actually makes that possible? Because in Australia, our drama is quite one-dimensional. It's not that interesting.
Well, I mean, there's lots of... what is it about Danish culture?
I don't know what's about Danish culture, but I think that we do have certain demands when we have a principle at DR anyway that we call the principle around the double story, that you cannot, as a writer, and when you pitch an idea for DR, it is not enough that it's only a good story. I mean, you could not pitch kind of a well-written but flat cop show. They would say no to that, even though perhaps it would have been produced elsewhere. But they want you to go deeper. They want you to express something that is a general feeling of being Danish, of being a citizen in Western society, of being of time and right now in Danish society. They want us to go deeper.
There's this great speech that you give Birgitte Nyborg where she says, "Who are we as Danes?" And she has about 3 actually, and a great one about remembering when Denmark won football against the Germans, and how, okay, it's football, but it sort of brings people together and makes them proud. When will we feel that again? And then I looked online, and your Prime Minister has those speeches too. You can look up things that she said. But I mean, really, that question of saying, who are we as French people, Australians, we need to ask ourselves that question.
Exactly. I mean, what is the most difficult of being Australians? What is the most painful issues? Write about those.
And it was, such a privilege to be in a show where in every episode there's a moral, ethical, very essential thing going on, both that has to do with the outer world and the inner world, and to have that parallel, to be... We had this in the beginning of each episode. We were educated as well as actors or other ignorance on the show, because the topic, whether it being Greenland or being... it's informative as well, and I think that's a great luxury that without that, we have to learn something and grow together, but to slide that in, that was...
I think one of the best episodes in that first series is the one about women, making women. And it's not because it's women, all right, back off. But it's about the fact that she is coming in saying, okay, I want 50% of women on boards. And then we watch the horrible development of this woman who comes in, who is not a politician but a business person, and has to somehow part of it, whose past is dragged through, and she's a particularly attractive woman and all of that. It all comes up, and by the end you make the ultimate sacrifice where you have to say to her, I'm going to fire you.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to ask you to find a way to leave. So again, people are sacrificed along the way.
And can I just add to that it was actually before they came into government. It was actually their plan, and it was in all the proposals they were going to make as a new government, the Social Democratic Party, that they would make this law in Denmark. It is a law in Norway that you have 50% women and men on boards and stuff, and they abandoned the idea. So I mean, it was also kind of eerie that just the same thing happened. They abandoned the principle, and it's not going to be a law in Denmark anymore.
The thing is that a lot of episodes from Borgen, they were sort of debated in newspapers and everywhere. If the days after it was broadcast, it's Sunday at 8 p.m. and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it set the agenda for the discussion and debate, and that was very nice.
Yeah,
especially the third season was very nice.
Thank you, great question. Yes.
One of the key production values that I noticed with Killing and Borgen, and that really drew you in as a viewer, was the soundtrack. The first time I noticed that was in a television show, was in Twin Peaks with David Lynch. He used that very powerfully. And it rarely occurs in TV shows. To what extent was that one of the production values that you focused on, as I say, particularly with the killing, the heartbeat motive, to create that anxiety and foreboding?
But that was very hard work to get there, I would say, because I think it took us around 18 months to get there. From we started until the composer really hit the tunes, the sound, the way, the feeling of the show. But when it finally got there, it was excellent, and it's been some of the signature of the series, and even the Americans for the remake bought his music, and he re-recorded it for the Americans. And he was in some kind of competition with 10 American very popular composers, and they picked him anyway. So it has been, and we've been working with it all along ever since we sort of found it. He found it, and then all the way he's been adding more and more score bits to it. So it's been a very, very close relationship with him, and he's been, writing music for particular scenes and particular sequences.
Thank you. Great question that I forgot to organise. I mean, I've got it on tape, sure, but yes.
There are a few of us here from the SBS subtitling unit, so it's our very enjoyable job to watch you guys. We have a few questions. Danish investigative procedure. Often the police seem to enter a darkened warehouse or garage. The first thing they do is get out their torches. No light switches.
I can answer that because it's in the very first scene, in the very first episode, when she takes the elevator down, lights go out. And nobody, nobody puts it on again. So that's how it started.
Honestly, I understand if it's a question, but I just felt like saying that when after the first season, and that's the challenge when you play the same role for so long, that you feel like you almost you've been in every corner, and the torchlight, I have fought so many times to fire it. I hated it. But the thing is, it looks good on camera. You have to go through the lens, so you're just being blind. And so I tried to, because I felt ridiculous sometimes as well with that. But it looks good, doesn't it?
And just a personal request, can you invent a new 30-part series with Sofie, please?
Are you a subtitler yourself?
I'm editor, subtitle editor.
I'm a subtitle editor.
A subtitle editor. Well done, you. A lot of them were fired a long time ago, and that was bad. That we're glad that they're still here. They're still working. Were fired. Well, I'm just saying, because really, they are really. I mean, as you were saying, the beautiful thing about the UK is, and I'm surprised actually about the UK, that they found that subtitle programs were popular again. Like, what's wrong with our brains that we can't read something and look at something? It's like when you go and see Shakespeare, it takes about 15, 20 minutes to go, oh, what am I listening to? And then eventually you get into it. I think that's an incredible success story in terms of not dubbing. And that's why Scandinavians' English is so good, because they don't dub anything. They have everything with subtitles, and you have this incredible... I mean, can you please the English tonight, these people? But yeah, subtitles rule. Yes.
I have a question with regards to Borgen. I noticed that I've only seen season 1 so far, so I don't know anything. But I noticed that in the beginning of each episode you have like a quote from Machiavelli or someone else, and it actually becomes that extra layer of social commentary. How much of that was inspiration for you to design the episodes, and how much just happened to fit in like that?
Well, the episodes come first, obviously, but it's also to show that the mechanics of power never change. I mean, it's like saying what was thought 500 years ago when Machiavelli wrote The Prince about it's better being feared than being loved, and you see people exercising those principles today. So it's like, it kind of lifts the whole thing up. And I'm a sucker for good quotes.
Great question, yeah, thank you. Yes, down here, number 1.
I actually think I've spent more time with you two actors than I have with my family in the last year. Just to say that I think the program is an excellent representation of sort of the social democracy experiment, well, not experiment, but sort of culture in the Scandinavian countries. And I think at the same time, like in Borgen, for example, you're still prepared to show the Greenland issue that isn't resolved and carries on, I guess, similar to the issues here in Australia. So I just think it's wonderful because having spent some time in Denmark and Australia, whenever I watch the programs, I say, yes, that's what it's like. That's what it's like. People are equal. It's not men and women. It's not the women with the washing powder. I've had Danish friends out here, and they think this is the 19th century. The women do this and the men do that. But anyway, so thank you very much for that. But just a question around, I suppose movies, because I think we're in the golden age of TV now. There are some fantastic American shows, The Wire, Breaking Bad, and obviously what you guys have done. But just as writers and actors, is there any appeal to movies as well, or is this long form as appealing to you guys as it is to us as the audience?
Thank you. TV, film.
Well, I think both things are wonderful, and I think dramatically they have within them, they carry. There's something about television that is. It dictates a certain size and timing with the scenes and with the informations, and because people can zap away. I think you get that feeling. Whereas films, I think the incredible advantage of a film is a bit like you said with Shakespeare. When you go into the cinema, you can see a film and for the first 20 minutes think, I did not order this dish, it's not my favorite recipe. And then you get seduced and get into that very special tone of the film, and you go out with a completely new experience. There's something about TV which is much more choosy. And once you're in it, you can just live in there for a weekend or how long it takes. But there's something about I've gone back to seeing films. I was in the TV mode for a few years, and then I'm so amazed with the really good films how much you put into 2 hours, how many layers, how far you can get into another world and other characters. Because when you think about TV, it's this kind of development. But yeah, I think
from a writer's point of view.
Well, obviously you put a lot of work into creating the characters and creating the arena for a feature film, but also for a television drama. And then when you do television, you have the option of, do you want to tell about these people that you come to love and you really have gone through all these pains to create them? Do you want to tell stories about them for 2 hours or for 20 hours? And I would definitely often choose with the right characters and if you have the arch, because the arch is all important. Because if you only tell your story episodically, then it's kind of then it's not as interesting.
I mean, the powerful thing of watching 20 episodes of the grief of the two parents for a start in Killing One,
exactly.
It reminds you that stuff never stops. Because often we go in one episode, that's sad. But really, it keeps going, and you keep getting reminded through Pernilla and through Tice, this thinking, their world has completely turned upside down, and they're still in it. And there's this great scene where they just have a lie down. Because it's like 3 o'clock in the afternoon or so, and the kids are running around, the 2 boys are still there, and you're thinking, there's nothing else to do today, really. And it's very moving because, bang, then we go to the next storyline of still what's happening, but there's 4 different storylines, like before, 4 different storylines per thing, where you're thinking, oh, what's happening with Casper and Katrina today? What's happening over here?
Yeah. And that's often, that's often the wonderful thing, if you that sometimes you shouldn't invent new stuff. Sometimes you should kind of spend a little more of what you already have in the account. Because you should go into the backstories, you should go into your characters instead of just pushing a new character on stage and trying to develop the drama. So I love the
But I think, just to correct myself, I think the big success of television demands more of the movie films now, because we get really bored if we see a film that's just like one episode of a TV series. And there are a lot of films like that, which with a very and they're not going to survive. I mean, it demands to use the media like that. Now we're going to tell the story within this space.
At the moment, TV seems to be the thing. That's right. Yes.
To all of you. I was very interested as an American who studied in Denmark but now lives in Australia. I would like to compliment the SBS subtitling team. And I did notice there was a fair bit of press at the BBC. They were attacked a bit for their subtitles, that they didn't get the swear words in particular correct. Or just that level of emphasis and stress. So I was interested in not just the subtitling difference, but the different reactions to the sex, the violence, and how different cultures, I mean, obviously the show's been really well rewarded around the world, but how did different cultures take both shows?
For the killing, I think there's not been much discussion about that. The darkness has been sort of the big issue, I think. Because everywhere the killing is shown past 9 o'clock in the evening. In Denmark, really, it's the only place that we show it at 8 p.m., which is very early, and there's been a lot of discussion. There's a lot of warnings before, little children can't watch this, and 12-year-olds must only sit with grown-ups, and all that stuff. But that's because of the other planning of the Sunday night DR. But it's shown so late that it's never been a problem.
We had a really wonderful and very funny reaction from Israel, where Borgen is actually a success, and who would have thought? And I've actually seen kind of a Saturday Night Live show parody with a wonderful Israeli actress playing you. That was a preview. But anyway, I was interviewed by an Israeli journalist, and the first thing he said was, "So politics in Denmark, are they really so quiet?" Here we blow people up.
But what about in Korea? Borgen's gone gone to Korea. I mean, that must be wild too. I don't know. And then you go, well, is it? Maybe we're more similar than we think. You know,
South Korea though.
All right, South Korea. Yes.
I had a question for the writer of Borgen. I just want to know what your background is. Were you a political advisor? Were you a journalist? Or how did you get this insight into the Danish political system?
She's a chef.
So
you're a
lawyer and a chef.
Come on, tell us. Okay, Adam, you're a chef. He actually is.
Well, that's a bit weird. No, but I actually thought I was going to be a lawyer in my earliest youth, so I studied law. That has actually been an advantage because I mean, dealing with law and dealing with the language, with the official language of government. I think that. But anyway, I've always just been interested in politics, and then we've had a very, very, very good research team. We've been able to talk to politicians from all walks of Parliament, and also spin doctors, and we've had a particular very important angry and evil uncle, as we call him, on the show, was the political editor of DR News. And he actually came into the writer's room every time we finished an episode storylining. And we would pitch him the political plot. And he would listen to it and he would go, oh, no, that would not be a head of that department. It would typically come from here, and a journalist would probably hear that story from him, and we would correct certain details. But we would always choose a convincing, dramatically interesting thing rather than something that was absolutely correct but boring. So, I mean, definitely, it is a drama show, and we have the same issues. I mean, if you take an episode of The Killing and you show it to an old policeman, he would typically say, "Oh no, we would investigate in a different way." And also, I mean, politicians and spin doctors, they would say, "Why don't you tell the story about how politics are really made, about the thousands of hours we spend just watching, talking to others in rooms in Parliament?" And we say, "Because it's boring. It's really, really boring. We cannot show that. We have to." It's about drama is about mountaintops. It's not about the middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks.
I actually have a question about the cinematography of both shows, which I think is, or the look of them, which I think is a great part of their success. You know, the darkness in The Killing, the lack of light, and the widescreen aspect ratio in Borgen, which I don't think I've ever seen in another TV show. Was that, from a network's perspective, ever something that was sort of you were hesitant about? Because in Australia it's always something where you can't make these really drastic or bold choices, and from a filmmaker's perspective, was that something you really had to fight for, to push through, to have people have black bars at the top and bottom of their televisions?
Well, just addressing the black bars, it was actually our wonderful director and first photographer, Les Frank and Søren Carl Jacobsen, and we discussed it a lot. Actually, the story was that we knew that we were going to deal with a lot of stuff that are typically in the news. And we didn't want the show to look like news. We wanted it specifically to look like drama. We wanted it to look like feature film. Because we knew we would have politicians sitting in studios talking about stuff that they would probably be talking about in the news. So we wanted it to really look like drama. And that was one of the issues there.
And you were leading up to the news every Sunday.
Exactly. Exactly. So, but it was discussed at DR, and the bosses had to say yes to it, because it's also something about you actually cut bits and of the screen away, and oh no, can we do that? And they're actually paying license fee, and are they then going to pay less? Silly discussions like that go on.
And you don't think we'd get that done here? Are you a filmmaker? Cinematographer. Great, no, it's good to have those questions.
No, with the lack of light.
Yeah,
the same question whether
that was the same thing.
You know, they always pump it up higher, and you never go, that's too, when it's dark, when it's dark, too dark. You know,
but that has been an ongoing discussion through all 40 episodes, really, because you know, we started a little lighter, and then we we made it darker and darker, and for each show even darker, but not dark for the darkness, but you know, it has a certain sense and feeling to it, and we worked a lot with that.
But what I think actually is brave about it is that the audience really complained a lot.
Enormously, a lot of
had it been in America,
yeah.
they would have made it brighter.
Yeah.
You actually got stubborn. And
Yeah.
Do you think it's dark?
Yeah, but really, you know, yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
And
a lot of people complain.
Yes.
So instead of turning off their lamps in the living room around the sofa, they tried to turn the.
Yeah.
But it's
kind of a genre, as you know, it's a genre thing, and you have to keep true to the genre, because you can't sort of make a thriller genre with a lot of enigmas, a lot of sort of sound going down dark alleys if it's all lit and bright. You know, it doesn't make sense. So it's you know, it's very, to be true to the genre is a discussion we've had a lot, really a lot, and that's been the final weapon to getting our way.
Keep fighting the good fight.
That's true.
That's all you can do.
Can I say just that we shoot it with a different director for every 2 episodes who brings along his photographer. And particularly, I think in second season, we had quite different photographers on as well. And there was a very handheld episode where, you know, we have to go back to recognizing it as it was. But if you really become nerds, have a look at that as well, because I think it's quite interesting to see how different they work.
And that is different from the American way of working as well, because we give the directors the right to choose their DOPs and their editors. In America, the only new one on the every second episode is the director, and he or she comes in and, you know, sort of do the show. But the actors run the floor, as we say, and the DOP runs the shots, and the lighting designer, he does his work, and, you know, that's just how it works. But we give the creative freedom to sort of trying to push it a bit. Sometimes it's pushed too far, but you know, to inspire everyone, you know, sort of to move a little along. So it's not all the same. It should be the same, of course. You have to recognize it. But somehow you can, inside the sort of concept, you can still move it somehow. And it's often very nice when a director comes in and says, this show, this is no good. I'm going to do it good. Yeah. And then you say, okay, what are you going to do? And then one director said, we're going to take that awful sweater off, jumper off. She doesn't look like anything then. Sophie's such a nice woman. Why don't we see it? Well, put it back on. Other things you can do, you know, and that's very nice to have that sort of challenge during so many months and years of work.
But that's actually a key word, I think, for any department, also for actors.
Yeah.
And I think that's where our writer, and you probably as well, was extremely wise to not feel threatened about other people's ideas, because once you feel that if the writer takes only one of my 10 ideas, I feel encouraged to take responsibility of the story, telling the story, and we're all telling the story together. So I think that giving the freedom, of course, you keep the frame, but the more freedom you get, the more creativity you get. Brilliant.
And new blood, fresh blood.
Sounds like you're talking about some winter wonderland that doesn't exist right now, but it does in Denmark.
But it is hard work.
It does, yeah. It is. 2 more questions and we'll get to the end. Yes?
First of all, I think we can all agree that we're in the golden age of television now, largely probably thanks to HBO, the fact that not just stories and bravery in the stories that are told, but production values and everything else has moved forward. I mean, it's truly, as I say, I think a renaissance for television, that maybe TV itself is even rivaling film as the main media now. With that in mind, and I picked up on a comment earlier, I want to talk a bit about maybe, or you guys to answer a bit about commissioning policy and strategy, because obviously DR is a state broadcaster, and I think that one thing that ABC, BBC and a lot of traditional state broadcasters have fallen down on is they haven't followed that HBO thing. They make very good drama, like the BBC, as we know, make very good costume drama, They make very good drama, but very formulaic, and it hasn't got that uplift and quality that we see. You guys have been very brave, and you've clearly had a commissioning strategy and policy to push some of these more advanced dramas with greater production value. So the first question is around how did that strategy come about? What was it in place, and how to move that forward? And just very, very quickly, how do you kill your babies? Because obviously when you get such great series like Borgen and The Killing, and as we know from American TV, the temptation is just to keep going and going until eventually you're flogging a dead horse.
Well, I think the answer to the second question is it's good to kill your babies because then you make 3 amazing shows. But to the answer to the first question, how does that commissioning process work? Do you have to be going there like tough war?
No, not really. I think it started in the mid-90s, really, inspired by the Americans, and there was a former head of drama called Rome. He's a film director, and he came in and had this job. And he said, we are going to do the same as the Americans, shows about people in Denmark today, talking their language, sharing their lives. And it started Taxa, and you were a staff writer on Taxa. Yes, you were in Taxa. Yes, you were. And that's how those 52 episodes. It's 45 minutes, and it was a good sort of exercise for how is this going to work. And then we started developing the way of working, and then came Unit 1 after that, and then slowly they start. And the way we commission it is that we get a writer coming into us and says, I have this idea, and we pitch it, and we discuss it, and then, as Adam said before, we say, sounds good, but what is it really about? What do you really want to say? And then we discuss that, and then we get a little longer pitch, and then we pitch it for the DR executives, who has to pay the money. And then we start working, and then the thing that we try to do is about creative freedom, but we try to create a room around the writers, which are their room, where no one else can go unless you're invited in. And then, of course, as head of drama, follow it, read what's coming out. But it's their room for at least 6 months, where nobody sort of gets involved before. They had to come out with something so we can move on. With directors and casting and all that stuff. But and then we very often commission 20 episodes. We believe in the stories, and that's a good thing about being a public service broadcaster, because we have this license we get every 4 years. So we can plan ahead. We are not sort of. We don't have to wait until the money is there for the first 8 episodes, and then maybe we can do 2 more, and maybe we can do 4 more, like it is in the commercial world. And so that's a very big thing, and that's good for the creative.
And I will say that once it's difficult to get the go, but when you get the go, there's. If you don't really mess it up, then there's no question after that, actually. And they don't interfere, which is really important.
But that takes bravery, takes courage and vision, doesn't it?
It does. I mean, doing a political show at DR, because DR is also a very political institution, and it's very often accused of being leftish, and we were attacked in the... And it is. But we were attacked 6 months before we aired the first episode. We were attacked from the extreme right that, now DR is coming with this completely communist propaganda show. And it was really funny. But so you really have to keep your course very, very straight. But actually, the bosses didn't interfere once, and then again they did once, actually, which was a funny example.
Yeah.
The first time we meet one of the good bad guys, the politician from the extreme right party, the big kind of fat guy.
Love him.
Exactly. He's played by a very, very, very funny and sympathetic actor, Ole Testrup in Denmark. And the first time we meet this guy, our first director, Søren Krag Jacobsen, decided to open that character from his shoes and up. And he wore very ugly shoes. And all of a sudden, the bosses of DR, they thought, oh my God, if we show this person from the extreme right wearing these ugly shoes, we will be attacked. we cannot show these shoes. So they said we have to cut up the shoes. And that became a big issue. And the directors, they kind of, no, we have to show the shoes. And they were a shoe thing. It went all the way up to the director general. And finally she said, he said, at that time, show the shoes.
But then there's that great episode where they're all arriving for the election, and you've got your lovely red coat on, the other one's got that, and he comes up with his wife, he says, and you will see that my wife is wearing an old dress from something that only costs $25 at the moment.
My God, you know the whole story. Line by line.
But then, I think that the thing for a public service broadcast is to be courageous in storytelling and in the topics and the themes we're choosing. And this is one of and the structure of the killing is one of them. And the thing is to be courageous again when you have the courage to stop in time. That's the thing. And respect the writers, who says this is my story. It goes in three seasons, and I have no more to tell. And
I think your model is amazing, and I really think that DR should be out there saying this is how a public service broadcaster should be. Certainly from drama.
A very final question.
I feel a bit of pressure now.
Don't.
It's not that interesting.
Sorry.
It was just following on from the cinematography question about how different in post-production do you make the image from what was originally captured on film.
Beautiful. Great. You always write the script 3 times. When you write it, when you shoot it, and when you edit it. So that's the thing.
Did you make it darker?
Sorry?
Do you make the images darker in post for the killing in the grading suite? Do you do much? Yeah.
We darken all the corners always, because you never know what comes from behind or from the side or from anywhere. So that was the thing we did. Very, very sort of particular. Yeah.
We spent typically, I don't know if it's the same thing.
5 days.
But 2 weeks grading, right?
Only 1 week in... did you have better conditions than we had?
And you wouldn't think there would be any CGI in a political show, but actually there's one example which is quite funny from the first season. The 8th episode, when Birgitte is having her holiday, that terrible episode where the creaks in the marriage really beginning to show. And we wanted that episode to be in midsummer, very hot. Everybody's sweating all the time. And because of the production plan, they had to shoot in April, where it was kind of 10 degrees. And they had this big arrival at the summer mansion of the Prime Minister, and there were no leaves on the trees. We said there's a problem there. We cannot have all this dialogue going on, but let's go swimming. And no leaves on the trees. So actually the CGI guys, they put leaves on the trees. So it's all CGI.
Thank you, great question. Look, we couldn't we, just sit in their company for another couple of hours, but we can't. As we've been saying tonight, there's that power of TV, isn't it? Because you can bring it into your home and you can watch it, possibly in bed on your laptop. I don't know. That's sometimes what I do. But you get to watch it and be with it. And when you fall in love with these characters on long TV series, you miss them and you want them back. So we do love them. We don't know why, but we do. But it is TV, after all. It's not real life. But we care about those characters and we try to predict what will happen, and we do want to look out for them. Because really, you are bedtime stories for adults and for grown-ups. So, we're so delighted they came all the way here. Please, would you thank